When growing up, what kind of YouTubers did you watch? I myself remember very early on when I was first introduced to YouTube as a child. I was heavily into the Team Crafted squad. Back then, that was Sky Does Minecraft, Jerome ASF, Beijing Canadian, several others, which sadly most of that crew has either devolved into irrelevance, overly clickbaity content, and in some rather harrowing scenarios, such as with Adam himself, well, themself rather, I forget, that it was not so pleasant. I also watched YouTubers such as Vanoss back in the day. I remember my absolute favorite video from him back then, and still is, which sadly is deleted now, so you have to find it on one of the deleted archival channels that have been made by some of the other fans, was the shotgun montage with Taking My Time from E Double. I remember sitting down quite a lot at my grandfather's computer, and it would be me just sitting there on YouTube having something like a Pop Tart, typically strawberry flavored, and I would be watching a lot of his Gmod Sandbox videos back in the day. I remember the whole movie theater one. Of course, many of the jokes back then I would not actually truly understand. Like the whole Pluto Nash 3D. Of course, Pluto Nash is a horrible, awful movie starring Eddie Murphy. I have since seen that movie, and it is absolutely supremely awful. Those little things when it comes to your entertainment in your childhood can really make you who you are when it or with your sense of humor, your say interests, your hobbies, all that kind of shit. I still play things of Gary's Mod today, though granted I am one of the absolute crazy people that elect to add in a whole bunch of stupid, overly customizable and detailed weaponry into the game, and then just proceed to defend themselves against mass amounts of NPCs over and over in all of the Source Engine glory. When I was then as well, Call of Duty was something I kind of grew up with. I feel as though a lot of people my age can sympathize with that or empathize. Which one is it? Well, you can relate to it. I played a lot of Black Ops 1 and 2 because my all-time favorite thing was the zombies mode. Zombies was one of those safe things for me. I was a kid that didn't really have it easy really early on, and luckily when it came to those kind of developmental years where you start to kind of actually become a bit more of a person, think like about 4 or years old and above, I got to have it a lot better than I did in just those first few years. Long story short, my dad wasn't exactly the most pleasant of people. I'm not at all the only person in the world who can say that. Like, come on. Like, is that really all that entirely uncommon of a thing in the modern day? I'm not the only person whose dad was a bad person and left. But playing zombies was one of those things. I remember, like, I think the overall most played map for me back then would have been Town on the whole Green Run things of maps from Transit. I remember I would play zombies with my grandfather when I was that young. We had a PlayStation 3, which I convinced him to get because it was an integrated Blu-ray player, and because I was spending so much of my time over here during my formative years, that was kind of like my grandfather was effectively my father back then. To an extent, he still is today, but that's a whole nother story. I remember one of the typical things that we did, and I imagine most players did, was we camped in the alleyway area where Double Tap Root Beer is. I remember My grandfather would always yell at the top of his lungs whenever he was spinning the box. He got the ray gun. Ray gun! And it was just. I burst out laughing. It was just always. It's weird how you can always really reflect upon those early formative things in your childhood. You really just feel nostalgic. You miss it. You want to go back, but to a degree, you understand that you can't. I mean, there's only there's only so much time you have during some elements of your life that you just really want to go back to. I truly wish that I could go back to those years to a degree. If I was going to lie and be ever so slightly funny, I would say that way I could actually build the ice staff whenever I actually wanted to on Origins and do it well because I sucked at zombies back then to a degree. Of course, on some of the easier playing maps, such as Town or going to things like Kino and Black Ops 1, I was good, but when it came to that, I was sometimes lucky to even get the fire staff built, which, in my eyes, to this day, is still the overall most reliable one to build, especially since you can almost always get it at round 8 if you know what you're doing, and you don't really need to do a whole lot of extra crap, and especially you don't need to rely upon gobble guns within the Black Ops 3 remaking of the map. I remember one of my grandfather's favorite things to do was watch me play. He always enjoyed seeing me figure out all these little things when it came to the maps back then. Buried especially was my personal favorite, I feel, then, even if it wasn't my most played. Because it was very much the whole sandbox that zombies really felt it could be at the time. It was under the director Jimmy Zielinski, so it was a rather different creative heading than zombies would turn into, starting with Mob of the Dead, Origins going into Black Ops 3, etc., etc., etc. But with Buried, you had all of the buildables. On with those buildables, you could always utilize, or what the fan ends called Leroy. Thanks, I think it was Syndicate back in the day that came up with calling him Leroy after the whole Leroy Jenkins meme with giving him the booze and all. I would always put on one part onto the build table and have Leroy finish all of the rest of the buildable parts. And so I would get the head chopper made, and I would sit in the alleyway where Juggernog is. I recall as a kid, my overall record, I believe, was 53. I'm surprised that the PlayStation 3 could even handle it, considering everything I understand about that console in the modern day. There's a reason why that console had the worst port of New Vegas, is my point. I look back upon those little early formative years, and it feels nice. I sometimes wish I could go back to that. Life was a lot simpler then. I think that we always really take in those formative things early on, and we really don't understand how much that they do affect us. Like, those early formative years of watching YouTube so much really had me thinking that you can have so much fun in just those times that you're just existing. You're not really thinking about what's coming next. You don't feel the need to worry. You live in the moment. Your friends, your family, if you call them that, boyfriend, girlfriend, anything in between or out. It's take it from someone that really does not spend as much time with the people they really should in the modern day, I feel. Spend time with your family. They don't have to be your mom and dad. They don't have to be your brother or sister. And if you have them and are able to, I'd recommend you do. It just has to be the people you care about. Take those things from your formative years, use them as lessons, guidance. Even when it comes to the stupid entertaining things such as learning that Pluto Nash 3D is a terrible movie. Peace, everyone.